The artifact. The trek through the desert was longer and drier than even Maya expected, and she always prepared for the worst. But now she was here, at the entrance to the cavern, right where her research took her. One last artifact, she thought. One last sail, and then she'd have enough. She could start a regular life. She could leave behind the danger. Maya held out her hand and pressed the circular indentation next to the entrance. The large stone door slid out of view. Maya switched on her torch and stepped inside. Walking down a long, narrow passage, turning corner after corner, her shoulders collecting cobwebs as she went. The path opened into a final chamber. Maya looked ahead, and there it was. That prized stone chalice, intricately etched, a marvel of the ancient world. Priceless. As Maya lifted the artifact, she heard a rumbling behind her. She turned to see the floor between her and the way out fall away into darkness, and nearly lost her footing. Swiftly regaining her balance, Maya carefully placed the mighty goblet in her backpack. Now to escape. She took a few steps back, then ran full pelt, leaped across the chasm, landing safely on the other side. What a thrill it was, she thought, to be this good in the face of danger. Maya made her way back to the outside world, the desert daylight making her squint. One last artifact would be enough, she thought. For now. The little ghost. The little ghost couldn't see a thing. It was really dark, and scary too. Every sound was amplified. The werewolves in the fields, the vampire bats at the windows, the bigger, older, scarier ghosts. The little ghost began to shake. What was this feeling? Could it be fear? All of a sudden, his sheet lifted and spun around. Now he could see everything, including an old ghost floating before him. "You silly little ghost, you had your sheet on backwards," said the old ghost. "No wonder you couldn't see. All better now?" The little ghost looked around and saw the snarling fangs of the wolves and the ghouls and zombies that lined the halls of the haunted house. "Much better, thank you," the little ghost replied. And off he flew to torment and terrify and trick and treat. The acorn. Once, a squirrel fell in love with an acorn and went everywhere with it. One day, he kissed it goodnight and tucked it under some leaves. But a storm came and blew leaves all over the forest floor. He couldn't find the acorn at all. He spent the whole winter sad, often asleep, waiting for spring. When spring came, there were new trees and new acorns, but nothing could replace the one he had lost. But then, an acorn fell and bopped him on the head. Then another. Soon he was nearly buried in them. Something was different. These acorns smelled familiar. Their color was familiar too. Excitedly, the squirrel ran right up the trunk of the tree that had dropped them. And he understood. His beloved acorn had grown into a magnificent tree. Crying with happiness, he clambered into her branches, where he lived happy and peaceful till the end of his days. The opening batsman. Greg had been looking forward to the cricket match for months. He knew what was at stake, and he was willing to do whatever it took to be his best on game day. He spent countless hours bashing balls over backyard fences, perfecting his technique for maximum power. This wasn't just any cricket match for Greg. This was symbolic. It was his chance to show the rest of the guys who was boss. He never played with his teammates before and wanted their respect. Plus, he was facing a team of unknowns and figured you could never be too prepared. Game day arrived and Greg was ready. While the rest of the team ate snacks and chatted, Greg was swinging his bat, getting ready for the big game. He was stunned to see everyone else gorging on cake and lollies. I guess they need an energy boost, he thought. Everyone finally made their way to the pitch. Greg eyed his opponents, determined to intimidate the bowler and hide his own nerves. The first ball left the bowler's hand and Greg stepped forward with gusto. His eyes locked on the ball, Greg swung his bat. The ball came off the bat with ease, sailing over the fence and into oblivion. But it turned out to be the only ball bowled that day, as it was hit so far it couldn't be found. Greg was proud he'd achieved his goal, but felt bad he'd ruined his son's 5th birthday and stopped his friends from being able to play. A doctor, but for ducks. Denise Duck woke up one morning and noticed something when she looked in the mirror. Her beak was bright pink. This does not look good, she thought. I better go and see the doctor. A doctor is just like a doctor, but for ducks, not people. The doctor inspected her beak and tapped it with a tiny hammer. Does it hurt when I do that? Asked the doctor. A little bit, admitted Denise. I'll stop doing it then, replied the doctor. I'm worried about my lips, said Denise, pointing to her pink beak. You should be, replied the doctor. We're ducks. We don't have lips. This isn't a rash, it's lipstick. Which leads me to my next question. Why are you wearing lipstick? We're ducks. We don't wear lipstick, mainly because of our lack of lips. That's a relief, sighed Denise. I forgot I was wearing lipstick. I was at the beauty salon yesterday, having my feathers blow-dried, and the beautician asked me if I wanted some lipstick on my bill. I told her I'd rather pay for it separately. The doctor sat back in her chair and sighed. So when they said bill, you thought they meant add it to what you owed for your beauty treatment. But in truth, they meant that they were actually putting lipstick on your bill, which of course is what us aquatic birds call our beaks. Oh, thanks for sorting that out, doctor, laughed Denise. Good to know there's nothing wrong with me. I wouldn't say that, muttered the doctor under her breath. I'd say you were quackers.